Hi everyone and welcome to my video. Today I'll be taking you through my process for designing this children's board game. I decided to make this board game because of my niece. I wanted to create something for her that she is interested in, and she loves planets at the moment especially. In fact, she's loved them ever since I showed her a video of the sounds that the planets make. I don't know why I showed her that video now that I think about it, because she was about 3 and the sounds the planets make are quite eerie, but thankfully she wasn't scared of it and she ended up loving planets instead. So the style of this board game is based on the types of games you would get inside a children's magazine. I've seen a couple of my niece's magazines and they've had these really simple board games in there. They do replicas of, for example, Snakes and Ladders and just unique games. So I decided I wanted this layout to be very similar. And that's why you'll see in the end there's this section on the right where you can cut out the pieces that you would need for a board game if you don't have any of those at home yourself. But of course, if you have them, you don't need to cut them out. But that's why the design is the way it is, in case anyone is wondering. The first stage of designing was just making small sketches, and these sketches were really simple because I knew I was going to do the main part of the design in Illustrator, and I'm one of those people that doesn't like drawing the same thing multiple times. So the initial sketch is just very, sketchy. It's not drawn out to perfection or anything like that. To come up with the design, I did a Google search on children's board games, and specifically the ones you would find inside magazines. And also I looked up planetary games because I wanted to make sure my design wasn't accidentally infringing copyright of somebody else's. After the initial research and design, I went into Illustrator and started blocking out the route the players would take. And this part of the design took the longest because I had to make sure the measurements were accurate, especially of these squares. And what you'll see is that as I added the planets into the design, that kind of complicated the maths a little because the sizes of the squares had to change, and then I had to rearrange the placements of the route that the players would take simply because the planets were a little bit larger. I ended up having to, 1, bring out the grid in Illustrator to help with the measurements, and 2, I ended up fixing the final measurements off camera. And what I mean by off camera is that my screen recorder wasn't recording what I was doing on my laptop. In the design, I added in a spaceship, and yes, I know the placement is very odd because it's right next to the sun, but because it's a kids game, I decided that we can suspend our disbelief a little bit and therefore have the journey of the spaceship begin from Mercury. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I wanted the spaceship to take a journey through all of the planets and to reach the unknown planet X, which we still don't know if it exists or not, but obviously we're all hoping it does because we miss Pluto. And one of the main reasons why I definitely wanted all of the planets in there and for the spaceship to begin at Mercury, or near the sun, I should say, is because I wanted this game to be a teaching tool. I wanted children to be able to learn the planets in the correct order as they are playing the game. And that's why at the end you'll see I've added in prompts which tell players to go back to planets. The whole purpose behind that is to get children to learn the names of the planets and in the correct order. So when I was working on the spaceship, you'll see that I did have to bring up blue guides just to help me keep the symmetry of the spaceship, and coming up with a design also took me having to research on Google and take inspiration from many different designs just to ensure I don't infringe copyright. Again, that's the best way to avoid infringing copyright, is to take little sections of many different images that you see, but to never copy or never be inspired, should I say, by a large section of anyone's illustrations. The whole point is that you can be inspired what people create and you can take bits and pieces of it, but ultimately the final image you create has got to be largely unique and therefore your own. Something I did differently to the magazine board games I had seen for children is I added in a lot more prompts, and that's because I wanted children who were a little bit older than what those magazines would target to be able to play the game, and also for adults to be able to enjoy the game. I know for the time being my niece will probably not enjoy playing this game because it has way too many prompts that require players to go backwards, and she doesn't like stuff like that. But I'm hoping that with time she'll get to appreciate the gameplay and the idea of losing but then working your way back up again to win. In the end, the squares ended up smaller than what I initially imagined they would be, and that's because of a combination of, number one, the planets I had added in and the sizings of those, and that impacting the sizes of the squares and also the gaps between the paths. So all of those factors combined ended up resulting in smaller squares, but I do think it still works, especially considering that this game is meant to be printed on an A3 page. A very important part of the process was coming up or finding the correct fonts, or what I believe are the best fonts to be used in this particular design. And I'm the kind of person that always feels like I can't be sure I have the best fonts until I've checked pretty much everything. But usually when I'm searching for fonts using Adobe Fonts, I can narrow down the results and therefore not have to search the entire database. But when I was doing this game, for some reason my narrowed searches were not producing the results that I was hoping to get. So in the end I checked every font that was available on the database. Then it got to the coloring stage, and when it came to the background I was going to add in stars, but I realized pretty quickly that if I did that then the image will end up looking a bit overwhelming on the eyes. There needs to be a balance between detail and a lack of detail, and I decided in the end that the background needed to have as little detail as possible, and instead I kept the details on the sun, on the planets, and also on the spaceship. The pathway has also remained uncolored. I just felt like if I had added color into the path, then again it might become a bit too overwhelming, and I kind of liked the outlining the pathway look. I feel like it gives it a very clean but eerie look, which I think goes along with the planetary theme. I've done the best I possibly could have with this design, but there's still one thing that I'm concerned about, but at this point in time I just don't know how to do any better, and that's the colors of the fonts on the planets. Some of them are black, some of them are white. I wanted the colors to be the same on all of them, but that's not really possible when you look at the color of the planets behind the lettering. Some of them have light colors, some of them have dark colors, and that contributes to whether black or white was used on the text. But if any of you have a solution to this problem, please let me know in the comments below, because I would be really grateful to learn about that. And also please let me know if you would like me to make this board game available for sale as a downloadable product on my website, because at this point in time I don't know how I would even go about selling this, and if providing it as a downloadable product is even something that people would want. So let me know in the comments below if you would like me to do that. But otherwise, I hope this process video on creating a board game was useful for you, and thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time.